This is Mehul Mankad, and I'm here with Shelley Roth. Thank you so much for joining us.
What a pleasure.
So we're going to be talking about mindfulness. But first, Shelley, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a OBGYN by training, and I work over at Duke Integrative Medicine, and I work there both as a doctor and as an instructor.
Okay, great. So mindfulness, let's start out by you telling us what exactly mindfulness is.
Well, mindfulness, or mindful awareness, is a natural capacity. We all have it. It means just paying attention on purpose and in a kind and friendly way to what's happening at the moment. Examples of this might be when you're paying close attention to just the feel of the breeze or noticing the movement of trees on a walk, being immersed in listening to a loved one or a piece of music, or even paying attention to a worried stream of thoughts before going to a meeting. Just noticing what's actually happening in your experience right at that time and in this kind and curious way.
Okay. So I think I do that sometimes, but maybe not all the time.
I think that's true for most of us. It sounds so simple, right? To just pay attention, right, to what's happening right at the moment. Yet the other natural human capacity is exactly the opposite. Really thinking about something else entirely than what we're doing right then. You know, maybe you've had that experience too. I know I have, of driving somewhere
Right.
and then arriving and not even really remembering the trip, how you got there.
Sometimes I'll start driving from home and I'll end up at work, even though that's not where I meant to even go.
Right. But it's such a habit, right? We go on an old plan, not really what's happening at the moment.
Right.
You know, I know one of the other examples that definitely happens for me is sitting down to watch a game or a movie, having a bowl of popcorn, and the bowl starts out full, and the next thing I'm really aware of is the bowl's empty, and I don't even remember finishing all the popcorn.
If my attention is not mindful and I'm not kind of focused on the moment, where am I?
Often what you're doing is remembering something in the past, an event or a conversation, or you're thinking about or planning for the future. And these are really important key skills. Planning, analyzing events. You don't want to get rid of them. You just want to be aware of when you're doing that versus paying attention to what's actually happening in the moment or to the person in front of you. And practicing mindfulness helps train your brain to hold focus on what you are choosing to pay attention to and observe more accurately what's actually happening inside yourself or around you.
Or outside, okay. Now, obviously this is something that is important enough that we're making videos about it. There must be benefits. Tell us about them.
Well, there are lots, and there's been a lot of research done on the impact of developing a mindful awareness practice and its benefits to improve personal health. Practicing mindfulness has been shown to help people gain longer, more restorative sleep. Who doesn't need more of that? Really rest and recharge, helping people decrease the amount of stress, helping them reduce anxiety or depression, and helping improve their immune function, their ability to fight off colds or infections that they might be exposed to.
Wow, the whole body.
Yeah. So training the brain through mindfulness does this by actually changing the brain both chemically and structurally. In studies done measuring stress, we said, mindfulness makes a difference in stress. Both new meditators and very, very experienced meditators were matched up who reported the same amount of stress.
Okay, so they started out with the same amount of stress.
They started out with the same amount of stress, they measured it out, and they actually also responded in their body similarly. They produced a stress hormone called cortisol in the same amount, so really verifying they were experiencing the same amount of stress.
Okay.
However, the huge difference was that in the brains of the experienced meditators, they produced much less of the brain chemicals that were associated with stress. Things like ACTH or epinephrine, norepinephrine are the name of some of those brain chemicals or neurotransmitters.
And some people may know epinephrine as another one called adrenaline.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so that actually means, what does that different mean? the brain changes chemically to be more resilient and better able to respond and recover from stress.
Wow.
And those chemical changes lead to physical changes. So the brain, the areas of the brain such as the prefrontal cortex that we know are associated with the ability to pay close attention, to have better emotional awareness, to actually be more insightful and creative, actually show greater activity when they look at those type of pictures of functional MRI of brain activity in people who are meditators.
Wow.
And a bigger difference in experienced versus novice meditators. This is that concept of neuroplasticity really at work.
Neuroplasticity.
Yes.
Okay.
The ability to train our brains for more of what we want.
Now, what is going on that makes these chemical and brain changes possible?
These structural and chemical changes support changes in our thought process to actually be able to pause, to be able to choose a response instead of just having that automatic reaction. That ability to just take the moment to pause really creates an opportunity to be curious about yourself, about the client that you're working with, and the situation exactly as it is.
Okay.
And that kind of curiosity and clear awareness opens up the possibility of asking questions instead of possibly making an assumption about what we think is already true for our client, and to find out really what they are experiencing, what they're wanting, what they're concerned about, and then being able to meet together to create multiple possible ways, many right answers to meet their needs as effectively as possible.
All right, so the big question, how do we do this?
We do this in a couple different ways. There are both formal and informal ways to practice mindful awareness.
So one, you wear a tux, and the other one, a t-shirt.
Could be,
Okay.
but I actually meant something a little different.
All right, tell us.
Common formal practices, what I really mean by that is choosing to set aside time out of your daily routine, maybe 5 or up to 20 minutes, to really just pause, take a comfortable position, and focus attention on something you're experiencing. In many formal practices, it's choosing to focus on body sensations or very often on our breath, coming and going. There are also opportunities for formal practices that don't involve sitting, where you can walk and just pay close attention to the feel of your foot meeting the floor, lifting, shifting weight, so we can pay attention to just different common experiences, just being a human, things we have all the time.
Okay.
There's also opportunities to take this. The idea of formal practice is really to help train the brain to bring that type of focus and observation that we're practicing in the formal practice into all of our lives, every aspect. So informal practices might be just paying attention to what you're doing in the moment. It could be when you're washing dishes or eating a meal.
Okay. All right, so when I'm washing the dishes, if I am focused on the task and I'm not thinking about tomorrow or I'm not thinking about the day and I'm absorbed in that activity, that could be an example of a mindful practice.
Exactly.
Okay, okay. Let's try one of the formal things.
So let's give it a try. We'll do a short practice. We'll take about 3 minutes. in
Okay,
this practice.
all right. Do I have to like wear any special clothing or?
No.
I didn't bring my yoga clothes. I don't have any yoga clothes.
Well, good thing you didn't bring any then.
There you go.
So we don't need anything special to do
Okay.
this practice. We already have everything we need. So all we'll need to do is just take a comfortable position to
All right,
give it a
well,
try.
Put both
You-
feet on the floor.
Usually, yes, to uncross legs if they're crossed, to really take a minute to settle into the chair. And you don't have to be sitting for these practices either. People often lie down on the floor or on a comfortable surface, or they stand if they prefer, maybe leaning against a wall. All of those are okay.
Okay.
The point is to be both relaxed and alert, to pay attention to what we notice. Once you've found a comfortable position and made any of those needed adjustments, perhaps letting your eyes close or taking a soft gaze down at the floor in front of you. The reason to do this is just to help minimize distractions and allow your brain to focus on the sensations of the breath. Knowing for this time, there's nothing else that you need to do. Nowhere else to be. No one else who needs you. Maybe taking a conscious deep breath in and out through your nose. And then just letting your breath be exactly like it is, and directing your attention just there. Noticing where you feel it in your body now. For some folks, it's feeling the air moving in and out of their nose. Other people may feel it in the rise and fall of the chest, or maybe in the movement of the belly in and out with the breath. Just seeing what's true for you. No need to change anything. Perhaps as you're paying this kind of close attention to the breath, noticing the in-breath, that short pause, the out-breath, short pause, and then the breath begins again. When your mind moves away from focusing on the breath, know that you haven't done anything wrong. That's the natural state of the brain. Congratulate yourself for noticing and bring your attention back, like you'd welcome a friend to your home. If your mind feels particularly busy this morning, perhaps counting the next 10 in and out breaths to yourself. As you're ready, getting ready to end this short practice, taking 2 or 3 deeper breaths again, in and out. Ending your practice and bringing your attention back. Thank you. What did you notice from just taking those couple minutes to do that practice?
I noticed a few things. The first thing I noticed is that when I first started, I actually felt more anxious. And my mind went to all the things that I need to do and that I'm not doing. And I don't think that's what I'm supposed to do. Did I do it wrong?
Not at all. You did it exactly right. And that's a very common experience for folks, especially people who are so busy and serve others all the time. We're always thinking of the next task that needs to be done, and to pause can be really uncomfortable.
Right.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's part of the mindfulness practice, to notice what our thoughts really are and what our sensations are, and how those thoughts are actually taking us away from what's happening right now,
okay,
and in the moment. We
So
don't
then
have to change that at
Okay.
all.
I have had the chance to do this before, and so, practicing on clearing my mind of those thoughts helped me then go to a deeper level of peace and calm internally.
That happens for many people, and what I would say is even there isn't any need to consciously clear your mind of those thoughts. What I would say is just you notice those thoughts. Perhaps you even take a moment to name them to yourself. Worry, discomfort, anxious. And then you come back to the breath And it's that fact of actually accepting them instead of trying to clear your mind or push them away that allows that deeper calm and settling in, and the peace that I think you found next.
Right, right. I think that is what happened next. It also strikes me that this isn't something that needs to be prescribed. It's not for someone who has a certain illness. This could be something that everybody does if they want to.
So true. This is part of really brain training for that increased focus and attention that aren't we all asked to do more with less these days?
Right.
So that ability to be more creative by our chance to pause, notice things exactly as they are, and then just move on from there. Make a choice based on what's actually happening at the moment.
Okay. Well, I've got some more questions. I have heard from others when I ask them to consider mindfulness-based practices that they're worried that I'm signing them up for some sort of cult, or whether it's tied to a specific religion.
Mindfulness is not a spiritual practice in and of itself, though certainly I think there's good reasons that people have those questions, because this type of deep reflection and practice has been part of many religious practices, and practices like meditation or in practices like contemplative prayer. So I think people do have familiarities with their different religious experiences and personal traditions.
Okay.
However, mindful awareness in and of its own is simply a practice to increase acceptance, to increase observation, and to increase focus.
Okay, so you don't have to be a member of a particular faith community to do mindfulness, and if you do mindfulness, that doesn't mean you're no longer a member of the faith community that you were in.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And some people will even say that they feel like developing this kind of awareness helps support their spirituality.
Oh, okay, wow, that sounds great. Now, is this something I could use to help a veteran who seems stressed out or distracted?
Yes. I really hope that you'll find that this practice may be very helpful to you personally for your own health, and in strengthening and supporting your ability to bring focus and attention to the veterans you're serving. There are courses that you can take personally if this is interesting to you, to learn more, called mindfulness-based stress reduction courses.
And I think an abbreviation I've heard for that is MBSR.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly right. And that was developed by John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts. And it's been well studied in these different health conditions and its ability to make a big difference. And of course, the Veterans Health Administration has done work also in bringing mindfulness to veterans. And some facilities already offer groups for veterans, especially focused on those who have PTSD.
That's an interesting idea. You were saying that one thing that mindfulness practices help people do is build pauses into their lives. And for some of our veterans with PTSD, the trigger, which then leads to an automatic anxiety response, is so tied together. I wonder if that's where mindfulness can have some of its effect.
I don't know the exact mechanism with PTSD, and I think that would make a lot of sense that that's where it starts to uncouple the habitual reaction and what's actually happening now in the present moment. I think also, you asked, how could I use this directly with a veteran? Yeah, and one way to do that is you may want to offer to take a minute or two to prepare for a session with a veteran. If they do seem a little anxious or distracted at the start of a visit, you could offer it with a phrase like, I really want you to get the most out of our time together today. Oftentimes it's hard to slow down. We're so busy, we're multitasking, and we're often rushing from one thing to the next. And some veterans find it helpful to just take a few breaths together at the beginning of our session to settle down and really focus in on what we want to happen here together. Mm-hmm. Would you like to give that a try? And that's a way to just introduce it as a possibility.
Okay.
And, no worries if people say no. I don't want to give it a try.
Right.
It's just an offer Some folks may find it very helpful, but if somebody says no, there's no need to sell it, and just move on with what would be more helpful for them. If somebody says yes and you try a short practice together, and I would just have someone settle in, take a couple of breaths, and then ask them what they experienced at the end. Was it helpful or not for them? And thank them for being willing to give it a try.
And I think along those lines, it may be the case that if you feel awkward or hokey, they might notice that.
I think that's true.
If you're comfortable with it, then they may be more comfortable with it.
I think that's really true. So doing a little bit of the experimenting with trying a personal practice,
Right.
seeing what you feel for yourself, and if you're noticing some benefits of just stopping to take a couple breaths if you feel particularly busy and pulled in many directions, and that's helpful to you, then that may come true, ring much truer when you offer it to a veteran. So I hope this was helpful for you today, and that you do consider an experiment of a short daily mindfulness practice of 5 minutes, maybe less, maybe more for yourself, and that you feel comfortable introducing a veteran if it does feel like it might be a good fit for them.
Shelley, thanks so much for sharing this with us. I hope people really try it.
I do too. Thank you for giving me the chance.
Absolutely.